Yeah.
Remember that. I do.
Those were so good.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
It's now about moving forward.
Whoops, sorry.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
It's now about moving forward.
Tonight on Politics Now, a deal is finally reached, what the school district and the teachers union agreed to and how much it'll cost.
It is about hard work. It is about being here in Nevada.
4 presidential candidates visit Las Vegas for another union convention. What they said to the Nevada State AFL-CIO.
It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You need to do that.
And Republican Congressman Mark Amodei joins us to talk about immigration, why he tries to stay off social media, and gun control.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with Steve Sebelius.
A potentially disruptive teacher strike has been avoided. Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Sebelius. The Clark County School District and the teachers union say they've reached a deal on a new contract. It comes after weeks of failed negotiations. The Clark County Education Association have been threatening to strike on September 10th. The final deal, the school district will fund the salary increases for continuing education, honor a commitment to 3% raises, and provide more money for health insurance. The district plans to use money from frozen central office positions and interest earnings to cover those costs.
Together to begin fixing these problems and prioritizing education in a way that our state has never done before.
Governor Sisolak also said there needs to be a more permanent solution so this doesn't happen again in 2 years. The deal will cost the district about $189 million. Well, the presidential parade to Las Vegas continues. 4 Democratic candidates were in Las Vegas for the AFL-CIO state convention at the Flamingo Hotel Casino. Orko Manna spoke with them and reports on the issues that the candidates are focusing on right now.
We're just over 1 year away from the 2020 presidential election, and there's still a long list of Democratic candidates. A few of them were in Las Vegas, and they discussed everything from gun control to economic policy.
The 2020 elections do not stand for the year. It stands for the number of people running, 2,020 of us.
Starting off on a lighter note, Senator Cory Booker spent Wednesday morning at the Hispanics in Politics luncheon before heading to the AFL-CIO convention. In a one-on-one interview there, Booker tells me he understands the economy is a big concern for many in Nevada, a state hit hard by the Great Recession, and he has a plan to provide pathways to prosperity.
I'm going to be a person that makes sure that we return
the dignity of work, that we raise American salaries with my RISE credit that's going to give 150 million Americans a pay increase and cut poverty by 1/3.
Julian Castro also addressed his economic plans but focused on making sure his opinion of the president was heard.
Look at what he's done with China, and that this president has been terrible because he's so erratic. He creates so much uncertainty that he hurts business in our country.
The background checks, the assault weapon ban, the limits on magazines.
Also top of mind for many candidates, gun control, an issue extremely important to Las Vegas now 2 years after the 1 October massacre. Senator Amy Klobuchar says she's ready to implement nationwide change similar to Nevada's recent law banning bump stocks.
They would make a big difference in safety for our country. Nevada has taken a lead here with the new governor and the legislature in terms of actually passing some of these bills on a state level.
Senator Kamala Harris shared her approach after her recent drop in the polls.
It is about hard work. It is about being here in Nevada, spending time in Iowa, in New Hampshire. I think the only poll that matters is Election Day.
We can expect to see more presidential candidates visit the Valley in the coming months. Reporting near the Las Vegas Strip, Orko Manna, 8 News Now.
Well, the Republican National Committee released a statement saying in part, quote, President Trump has brought jobs and record employment to Nevada and is looking out for the safety of the Silver State, unquote. By the way, to watch Orko's full one-on-one interview with Senator Cory Booker, just go to our website at 8newsnow.com, then click on the 2020 election interviews button under the news tab. You can watch our interviews with other candidates there as well. Nevada Democrats say they are canceling their plans for a largely online virtual caucus in 2020. The goal was to get more people participating in the third nominating contest of the cycle and the first caucus in the West, using a sort of telecaucus. But the Democratic National Committee raised concerns about hacking. On Friday, the state Democratic Party said they are canceling the telecaucus. They're still planning to use 4 days of in-person early voting at caucus sites. Well, Republican Congressman Mark Amodei represents the northern part of our state. He's also the only Republican left in Nevada's congressional delegation. I sat down with him to ask about immigration reform, gun control bills, social media, and whether he plans to run again. Take a look. You had a great line the other day where you said, look, I'm not going to get involved in these social media spats that people touch off. I didn't get involved when it was other people. I'm not going to get involved when it's a president. Has social media, specifically Twitter, do you think that has made politics worse?
I guess, and I've never been asked that before, but as you ask, here's the thing. Is it part of the mix? Absolutely. Should it be part of the mix? Yes. But when it becomes the beginning and the middle and the end, I don't think that helps the issues. And that's part of the reason why when you know, the other day I said, listen, there's plenty of people doing that. What keeps my sanity in this day and age is let's concentrate on the issues. If I've missed something, then tell me what it is. People will still disagree with you, but it's like, and that's kind of an old-fashioned, stodgy thought.
What are your plans? You're going to run for re-election? Are you worried about a primary challenge? What do you think?
Well, you know, since I've been there, and in September it'll be 8 years. It's always been, I mean, there have been primaries, there's been contested generals, and it's every 2 years. So, you know, it's interesting when people say, well, you haven't been around. It's like, what election cycle did I miss, quite frankly. But, you know, it's one of those things where I think CD2 is perceived as, well, this is a Republican stronghold. And it's like, you know, I remind people, I say, you know, Washoe County is about 50-50 on the registration. Close. And they go, oh, it's all red up there. It's like, the last person I know that campaigned up there that said this is a Republican district and I'm the Republican survived by about that much. And so, while I don't want to ruin anybody's stereotypes, I think you still have to basically be somebody who knows the issues and knows the region and, quite frankly, has the ability to interact successfully.
What about this idea of a universal background check, extending those gun store background checks that licensed dealers have to conduct now to all private party sales, just to ensure that the people who are prohibited by law from having a firearm can legally buy them? Well,
I'm open-minded to that. I mean, the devil's in the details. But listen, nobody's in favor of bad people having guns, right? Despite what the political consultants will tell you in advertising season. But you sit there and you say, one of the things we do on every one, the recent ones, the one that sadly we had here in October of a year ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was, and so you sit there and you go, how did this person get those guns? Was it legal? Was it illegal? If it was illegal, then how come what was on the books didn't work? If it was legal, do we need to change what's on the books? But what we look for is, quite frankly, it's like, what's the cause and effect? We need to stop that. The challenge, Steve, I think becomes is when one of these happens and one side goes, you got to get rid of all the guns, and it's like, why would you abolish one of the amendments essentially and punish 99.8% of the people who are abiding by the rules because you got 2%?
Could a bipartisan bill on immigration make it through, or as you pointed out, is it just too politicized to happen?
You know what, I mean, on something as important as that, I mean, let's talk about Nevada. It's 1 in 4 people in Nevada are folks that are affected directly by this. And so you sit there and you go, well, whether you like the issue, are comfortable with the issue, or don't like it and aren't comfortable with it, it's 25% of the population that's directly impacted. And when you get to indirectly, it's probably everybody. We probably really ought to, deal with that issue. And it's not a lot different in other states. Some of them are more, some of them are less, but not much. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. You need to do that. You need to deal with that.
How would you do it? What would a Mark Amodei
first of
bill
all, they
look
say, comprehensive, it's like the word comprehensive has become a dirty word. So it's like, you know what, Dreamers and TPS folks, there was a bill that the House passed just a few months ago where it's like, that ought to be low-hanging fruit.
Well, as far as people challenging Amodei in a primary, the filing deadline is in March, so the field hasn't quite filled out yet. But those who live in the district and are being talked about are former Attorney General Adam Laxalt, who ran unsuccessfully for governor last year, and Danny Tarkanian, who recently moved into Amodei's district. In addition, there are at least 2 Republican state senators who are serving their final term who may also be interested. Well, what to do about health care?
My constituents who I've talked to about this issue tell me they want to protect the health care that they have now.
I sit down with Congressman Stephen Horsford, who tells me why he does not favor a Medicare for All plan, whether or not he thinks the president is a racist. That's next on Politics Now.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
We sat down with Congressional District 4 Representative Stephen Horsford this week. The Democrat is working on 2 projects right now, the census and prescription drug affordability. I asked about those and about President Trump. Take a look. You have not come out for Medicare for All. You are sort of in the Joe Biden camp of saying, we have the Affordable Care Act, let's stop trying to repeal it and build on it to cover the few people, well, I say few, millions of people who do not have insurance.
I'm in the Stephen Horsford camp of fighting for my...
So Biden's in your camp, is what you're saying. Okay.
Look, these folks are running for president. I have a job to do right now as a member of Congress. And my constituents who I've talked to about this issue tell me they want to protect the health care that they have now. Over 70% of Americans receive their health care through employer-sponsored plans. Many of these are plans that workers negotiated those benefits. I'm not going to take health care away from the guest room attendant or the cook or the food server who's already fought so hard to get the benefits that they have. Some of those health plans are the best health plans in the country, including better than Medicare. I'm also not looking to disrupt the entire healthcare system. I believe that we need to provide a public option. That's why I support Medicare X, but that's to add an option along with employer-sponsored health care, the Medicare that we have now, the Affordable Care Act, which we need to strengthen and improve on because the Republicans have been sabotaging over the last couple of years, and of course the expansion of Medicaid, which I always commend former Governor Brian Sandoval, the first Republican governor in the country, who enacted that Medicaid expansion, and because of it, we have cut the rate of uninsured people in Nevada by half.
The administration recently tried, they failed, to get a question on the census that was on there in years past, it hasn't been on there in quite some time, about citizenship. Do you think the publicity around that question, even though the question is no longer going to be on the census, is the publicity around that question going to drive down participation?
I'm concerned about that, and it's one of the reasons I agreed to become the chair of the 2020 task force on the census for the Congressional Black Caucus, and I'll be working with all of my colleagues to try to improve the participation. We've had a census every 10 years since 1790 in this country, and every 10 years we've had certain communities that are historically hard to count communities. Here in Nevada, it's projected that some 55,000 people may not be counted in the census. For every one person that's not counted, that's $20,000 in lost federal funding. Multiply that by 10 years, and it's over $1 billion in lost revenue to the state. And that's in the form of programs like SNAP, Medicaid, housing vouchers under Section 8, grants for small businesses, transit.
He has made a lot of statements recently that have been very controversial. He has been called a racist by a lot of the people who are running for president. Do you think the president's a racist?
Look, what I believe is that the president's policies and his actions speak for the discriminatory and racial beliefs that are held. And that is what's most concerning to me, is the long-term policies. You know, they just appointed the 99th federal judge, confirmed the 99th federal judge in the Senate, while they're taking up no bills to deal with gun safety.
The 99th of the Trump presidency.
Correct. 99 federal judges. That is a generation of judges that are going to set a course of legal interpretation, and many of them were not qualified. The lack of diversity, no inclusion of even women judges for the most part.
Well, the famous Area 51 may be home to aliens is also in Congressman Horsford's district, so I asked him about security for that Storm Area 51 event that's morphed into a festival-type party planned for next month. You can watch his answer and the rest of our interview on our website at 8newsnow.com. Up next, immigration rule changes for the military.
You have a lot of non-U.S. citizens in the military.
Children of those non-U.S. citizen service members now have an extra hurdle before they can become citizens themselves. The reason the administration is making this change and the confusion behind it, that's next as Politics Now continues.
watching Politics Now.
U.S. immigration officials are defending new citizenship rules for children born to some U.S. military and federal employees who are serving outside the country. Now the administration is facing criticism for the rule change and for the way it was announced. Washington, D.C. correspondent Alexandra Limon has the details on what the new rules say and to whom they apply.
U.S. immigration officials announced new citizenship rules for children born to some military and federal employees while they're serving outside of the U.S. The children born to non-citizen parents will now have to return to the United States, physically live in the country for 5 years, then apply for citizenship before the child turns 18. This includes children of legal permanent residents.
Our servicemen and women give everything for this country, and this is the respect that President Trump shows for the service.
The initial announcement was made with this memo online, and it caused an uproar at U.S. installations around the world. Immigration officials had to then clarify that the rule change will not apply to the children of U.S. citizens.
But the fact of the matter is, you have a lot of non-U.S. citizens in the military.
Lawrence Korb is a former Assistant Secretary of Defense, retired Navy captain, and senior fellow at the Center for American Progress.
Without immigrants in the military, we wouldn't be able to maintain our volunteer military.
Korb says the change may actually discourage military service.
If those men and women are overseas and their children are not U.S. citizens, whereas if they had stayed in the United States, they would be. That is a policy that undermines rationality and military readiness.
Immigration officials say they don't believe the new rule creates more burdens for immigrants who serve our country. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Well, part of the initial confusion about what the rule actually said was because it was just a memo posted online, as Alex showed you. So I talked to her to help us unravel how that exactly happened. You've been doing some reporting on this. What is the truth? What's really going on here?
Okay, so you're right. It caused a lot of confusion, in part because of the way it was announced. It was just kind of posted online, and then some reporters happened to stumble upon this post that says, hey, there's this policy change that now if you're a U.S. citizen, military member, or government employee serving abroad, your child may not automatically get citizenship if they're born out of the country. Well, we had a couple of calls with USCIS officials who say actually that's not the case, even though that's what the paperwork posted online appears to say. What's actually happening is that parents who are U.S. citizens, their children will not be affected by this policy change. It's only going to apply to people who are U.S. residents or otherwise not U.S. citizens.
Why is this coming up at this particular point? I mean, what is the purpose behind this change in policy?
That is a really good question. We've heard from people like Joe Biden, who's obviously running for president, who say there is no point, there's no reason, nobody's complaining about this issue. People are slamming the administration for the change, saying they don't understand why it's happening. However, again, on this call with USCIS officials, they say that the State Department asked USCIS to change their policy because USCIS policy didn't match the current State Department policy. There are two different sets of policies, and they're trying to make them match up. And they also say that because of those discrepancies, some military or government families were having trouble obtaining passports for their children. So the USCIS actually says they're actually trying to make things easier for these families.
Has the Defense Department weighed in? Because this affects a lot of military members as well.
Well, here's the thing. It seemed to catch military members by surprise when the announcement was first posted online, and there was a lot of confusion. So we were under the impression that DOD had not been notified ahead of time of this change just because of the sheer confusion that was out there initially earlier this week. However, USCIS said that they notified DOD back in May that this change was coming. We've reached out to DOD to confirm whether that was the case, and we're still waiting to hear back.
Well, those new rules will apply to children who are born after October 29th. Coming next, a look at our new border report section of the website. That's up next on 8 News Now. caught on camera. Men believed to be surveyors for the border wall. They were recently spotted on private property without permission in South Texas. And the presence of a camera did not deter them at all. You'll find that story right now at borderreport.com, or look for the Border Report button on our website at 8newsnow.com. Read why property owners said they felt, quote, violated, and what they say those men did to their property. And on What's to Watch for next week, presidential candidate Cory Booker will be making his 7th trip to Nevada. He'll be at a Labor Day cookout that's hosted by Congressman Stephen Horsford. Booker's mother lives here in Las Vegas, so he has been in Las Vegas on quite a few holidays. But let's hope that Congressman Horsford has some Beyond Meat at his cookout, however, because Senator Booker is a well-known vegan. If elected, probably our first vegan president. And at the Clark County Commission meeting on Tuesday, Commissioner Tick Segerblum has an agenda item to form a blue ribbon task force to look into child deaths in Clark County. This is a subject that the iTeen's Vanessa Murphy has extensively covered and won awards for, and you can watch her stories on it on our website at 8newsnow.com. Well, thanks very much for watching Politics Now. We'd also like to say welcome back to our DirecTV viewers. We are glad to have you back. And thanks for joining us. You can email me at ssebelius@8newsnow.com.